Hi, Andrew Cuneo here with another standard deck tech using Crimson Val cards. This time I'm going to try out something that I've overlooked at least thus far, which is some of the red-green werewolf stuff. I think that this is kind of the card that maybe was being underrated. Uh, it's modeled after a card like Elvish Piper that has always just been terrible. But I think this card maybe has enough going on with it that it is actually good. So let's go over what it does. 4 mana, you get a 2/2, can't be countered. It's a werewolf, so it has the daybound, nightbound thing going on. The front side of it allows you to spend 1 green to put a creature from your hand on the battlefield. And then additionally, if it's a wolf or a werewolf, you untap it. So you could put multiple things into play in one turn. Then the backside, it's a 4/4 and it allows you to dig through your deck to find more creature cards, right? Yes, creature cards. So this is a werewolf deck, so we're hoping to put multiple werewolves in play with it in one turn, and the best werewolf to put in play is this new card, Avabruck Caretaker. 6 mana for 4/4 hexproof that puts 2+1/+1 counters on a creature you control at the beginning of combat, so like a gigantic Luminarch Aspirant. Then when it flips, everything you have has hexproof, and you put 2 counters on each creature you control. So it's going to win the game really fast once it flips. So ideally, turn 4 we're going to play this. Turn 5 we're going to put 2 of these into play, and then we're just going to have a great board. Then here's another werewolf that I tried some in mono red, and I thought it was fine. It's a way to deal with small creatures in play, a way to deal damage fast, so that's what this deck's looking for. Then, this is the weakest part of the Werewolves deck. There's this one new wolf, which is a 1 mana 2/1, but there's no other 1-drop that you're really happy playing. The next best card is like Snarling Wolf, which is just a 1 mana 1/1 that you can pump to a 3/3, and it's a common, which there's nothing wrong with playing a common, but usually if a creature's common, it's because it's not very powerful, and this card is not very powerful. So I'm not going to play with that. Instead, to fill out the curve a little bit, I've got 2 copies of Play with Fire. There seems to be a lot of small creatures getting played in Standard now, so you're hoping to kill a creature with this. You're hoping to not fall too far behind on board when you don't have a 1-drop. In the 2-drop slot, we've got Werewolf Packleader, which is great. We've got the Kessig Naturalist, which is a way to ramp in this deck, and it fits into the werewolf synergies. And then 2 copies of Ranger class, which does make a wolf, which matters for Tovolar. And it's also just a way to get some value if your opponent is trying to grind you out. In the 3-drop slot, we've got very good 3-drops, Reckless Stormseeker and Tovolar. So Tovolar wants you to play a lot of cheap wolves. Unfortunately, they just really aren't available, but I think it's still a good enough card on its own. Then there are a total of 26 lands, I believe. That's correct. 2 Shatterskull Smashings, which I think is just a great card in any high mana red deck, especially one like this where you don't really care about paying the 3 life all that often. And then some Lair of the Hydras, and then the usual dual lands and basics. Sideboard, we've got more copies of Play with Fire to play against a white weenie deck. Some Snakeskin Veils against like a blue-black deck or maybe a blue-red deck. Then I do think that if you're going to play with this Howlpack Piper, there are going to be matchups where it's just not a very good card, where you're going to play a 4 mana 2/2 and then they're going to kill it for 1 or 2 mana. So there are some more resilient 4-drops to board into Esika's Chariots and one Arlinn. Probably the Arlinn isn't as good as an Esika's Chariot, but this is a wolf-themed deck, so I'll give it a try. Some removal spells for bigger creatures, Thundering Rebuke and Burning Hands. I think you want to have like 2 cards that can kill Smoldering Egg in any sideboard, because in the sideboarded games, if it's a Smoldering Egg deck, you're really going to want to be able to kill the egg, but you're not going to want to fill your deck up with cards that might be otherwise useless. So I think 2 is a good number there. 2 copies of Burning Hands for green decks, obviously. A Tangletrap and a Choose Your Weapon. These are cards that are good against Goldspan Dragon, but you could also have it in your deck if you were playing against somebody who had like Portable Hole and flying creatures you wanted to kill, or just they have Esika's Chariot and flying creatures you want to kill, like Esika's Chariot Goldspan Dragon deck. So these are kind of flexible-ish sideboard cards that are mostly targeted at Goldspan Dragon. Then 2 Huntmasters, which I think the Huntmaster may be the card you want to cheat into play with Howlpack Piper versus green decks over the Volatile Arsonist. So that's why I've got those in my sideboard. So that's the deck. I'm going to get into some games. Pretty awkward hand. I'd like to be able to cast my pack leaders, please. This is not looking very good right now. So what are my bet? If I draw a 4th land and maybe 2 copies of Avabruck Caretaker, then maybe I could start to do something. I think I'm not going to attack. I think I might need to double block. Well, this is hopeless. Guess I can double block the pack leader, but still. The green deck, when it curves out on the play, is so hard to beat. Especially when they have Blizzard Brawl and you're trying to just play creatures. Also, beating Esika's Chariot by trying to block it is not a remotely reasonable way to approach it. Well, that should make it easy enough to concede. Alright, against green decks, I've got 4 removal spells I like. I've got the 2 Tovolars, and I think the Arsonists are probably bad. What else do I think is probably bad? The pack leaders seem pretty lackluster. Honestly, maybe I just even want another play with fire over them. This, I got 5 6-drops in my deck against green. I guess let's just hope for the best. Let's hope the Howlpack Piper lives and lives up to its promise of putting all of my 6-drops into play. It's at least a good hand. I think I should just play the Werewolf pack leader, because I'll be able to play Tovolar and attack with this regardless of what play they make. If they have their own pack leader, they'll just trade, probably. They'll be strongly incentivized to trade, at least. If they have Blizzard Brawl in their hand, they might decide not to. This looks like they have Blizzard Brawl. But they didn't have the 3rd Snow-Covered Forest. I don't know if they realized that their creature was going to die like that. Didn't seem great for them. I'm going to kill one of these just so they can't have an effective double block. Do I want even more Play with Fires on the draw? Maybe I do. Maybe like over a Reckless Stormseeker. I want to use them to kill Sculptor of Winter, hopefully to prevent them from playing a turn 3 Chariot. Alright. Got a 1, 2, 3 curve at least. And then I've got a 6-drop for later. Come on, no Werewolf Packleader. We just want to see a Sculptor of Winter here. Boo. So my game plan's basically just going to be to try to stall to get the Huntmaster out. I think if I can get the Huntmaster on the board, it's going to be pretty strong against their deck. Sadly, I'm in a spot where if they have Blizzard... excuse me, if they have Blizzard Brawl, it's all over. Okay, well, this obviously isn't going great for me, but it could be going worse. Not going to attack. I guess I'll just use my mana on the Ranger class because it'd be going to waste otherwise. So this would put me to 2 life. This game might be winnable. They don't seem to have much going on. They're going to have 4 attackers, and I'm going to have 4 blockers. Sadly, I am going to be in a spot where I think I have to use the Huntmaster to block the Old Growth Troll. Maybe I don't. So... I can just triple block. And then hopefully the Huntmaster is going to get to attack next turn. They are going to be getting the token back. But I'm potentially going to have my mana untapped for the Lair of the Hydra. I think my opponent's probably made some missteps this game. to allow me to get to this point. I think they made it too easy for me to double block them at some spots. If they don't have a spell on top of their deck, this game is really going to start looking grim for them. A creature spell that they can cast. Like, they need to flip this thing back down. Alright, that's a very, very good card to have on top of their deck. So how does this card work? Target wolf or werewolf you control fights a target creature you don't control. So I think I'm gonna go to blockers. These two block that. Block there, block there. And this thing will fight this. I guess that was just strictly worse than animating the Lair of the Hydra. I should have thought through that a little bit more. I think it's still probably going to be good enough, but it definitely could have been better. Classic beatdown curve, 1-drop to 6-drop. Not really a classic beatdown curve. Probably a flaw in the construction of this deck. They're just really... There aren't enough good 1-drops in Werewolves, and there aren't enough great ways to ramp in a Werewolf deck to get you to the 6 drops comfortably. See if we can bluff through some damage. It worked. It'd be kind of crazy to turn my land into a 1/1 to attack with it just to potentially deal 1 more damage. If they have any spell that kills a creature, they would definitely kill my land, and that would just be a disaster. I kind of assume that the pack leader is going to die here. They just took 4? Wow. Hopefully, if they have divide by 0, they're going to decide to use it on a pack leader. So they can't divide by 0 my Howlpack Piper when it's on the stack. I think they definitely should have blocked and prevented 2 damage if they had divide by 0 in their hand. Like, what are they worried I'm going to do if they couldn't divide by 0 it? I am a little bit concerned that what's going to happen now is they're going to transform the egg and kill the Piper before it gets to activate. It kind of looks like I missed a damage there by not playing the Piper first, but obviously if I play the Piper first, I can just clearly block. Okay. That might be beatable, actually. There are no planeswalkers in play. They might be on Epiphany or Bust at this point. I guess they could also just kill me. They could somehow cast 4 spells. Getting to look like they probably don't have Epiphany in their hand. Or if they do, they're taking a very long time to decide to cast it. Still need 2 spells in their hand because of the Lair of the Hydras. Is there a reason to make this bigger than a 2/2? I guess there's not really a reason to hold back. I think I'm going to die if they somehow manage to live through this turn anyway. I definitely wanted to animate this in attack in case they have a Fading Hope. Which I guess if they have a Fading Hope, they can still Fading Hope my land. And shock this with the Ashmouth Dragon. If they have a Fading Hope, they can, regardless of how I play, they can put me in a spot where I have to trade the Caretaker for the Ashmouth Dragon. Like if I don't attack with the Lair of the Hydra, they just get to play the Fading Hope and trade. Okay. It's a little bit worse for me that I animated my thing. Still have a lethal Lair of the Hydra. Another egg. Have access to 6 mana, but not 7. I might be winning at this point if I had just made the previous Lair of the Hydra 2/2, so I could also play a second spell. Get to make this a 5/5 at least, so they don't beat me with just a Dragon's Fire. Casting any of my cards doesn't do anything because none of them have haste, so I would just die to Goldspan Dragon. It might be on Fading Hope or Bust, which they probably have a bunch of Fading Hopes in their deck, so they have a good chance of hitting. I guess they could also have Dragon's Fire plus Spikefield Hazard, which that looks like what they have. Yeah. Alright. Good game. So they're definitely a dragon deck. And they're a deck with Dragon's Fire, so probably I don't want the Pipers. I think I do want Chariots. I do want Tangletrap. Do want Thundering Rebuke. Do want choose your weapon. Don't want Play with Fire. Other things that I might want are Snakeskin Veils. Or Arlinn. Arlinn is quite weak to Goldspan Dragons, so I think I don't want that. And I think I'm just not going to have Snakeskin Veil, because I don't want to have too few creatures. I think the Snakeskin Veils would be better in a matchup where I was having less interaction in my deck post-board. So a matchup where I didn't have to have the Thundering Rebukes and the Tangletrap and the Choose Your Weapon. Okay. Still get to attack for 3 and get a card, which is very nice. And I've also got the day-night cycle started now, which that very much favors me. It probably doesn't benefit their deck at all for it to be night, but there's a lot of cards in my deck that if it's night become a lot better. Multiple eggs. I suspect that I'm about to get Fading Hoped here. But I'll play for the upside of them maybe not having it. Okay. Let's get a red mana. That way if they choose to actually block, I can finish off an egg with a Shatterskull Smashing. Seems good to me. They're getting priority. Which I would think if they had a spell they could cast, they would have chosen to. Maybe what the card they have is Spikefield Hazard, probably. I think that's the only card that might be in their deck that they would not be choosing to cast. And yeah, they just played a Spikefield Cave. It's nighttime. A little bit worried about Divide by 0. So what happens I play this, they divide by 0 it, I attack with everything. They're taking 13 down to 2. Problem with playing this thing is if they can then divide by 0 this. I lose a lot of damage that way. I think I'll just go with this. Rena's really giving me the opportunity to try to make the illegal play of animating my Lair Hydra for 0. Another egg. That's probably an Epiphany. That is a lot of damage. And a green mana for me. One land, 2 1-drops, but it's a tap land, and I've got 2 6-drops. This is not a keepable hand. I like to keep a nice 1-lander when it's possible. I don't think that was possible. Do I want a Tangletrap, or do I want Kessig Naturalist? I think I'll just keep the Naturalists. This thing will let me play 2 spells next turn. It also starts the day-night cycle, so I don't even necessarily need to play 2 spells this turn. Should I play around Jwari Disruption? I think I will, because also if I played 2 spells, it'll flip this back down. Their deck is not well suited to fight through 2 4/4s. See if they have divide by 0. Not that they're going to play on this one that's on the stack. It makes sense to wait if the card they have is divide by 0. It might have made sense to cast it on a Lord of the Evenwald and not take 8 damage. Okay. So it looks like there's definitely going to be a Epiphany in my future. They have to block at least one of these. I can't Shatterskull Smashing for enough to get them out of the way. The 4 blocks. But I will be able to kill whichever one doesn't die from blocking. And then they'll get to Epiphany, but it won't be for that much value. I think their best block is... Oh, they need to block 2. Never mind. I should have pumped that. This is not a very effective spell right now. Worst case, they could play it for 0 to flip these both back down, which removes a lot of power from my board. Alright, that's the victory. You're going to win 2 games in a match. So that's the deck. Felt a little clunky, but it was capable of doing some really powerful things. We only got to have one really good Piper turn, which is kind of disappointing. But it was fun. And this card was also pretty good. So maybe there's a little bit of a future for this deck. Definitely, if a new 1-drop gets printed in a future set, or if you find some 1-drop that you're happy playing with in this deck, this could be a very good deck. So I guess I would say don't sleep on this card. Maybe there's even spots that aren't in the Werewolf area that it could be good. Although I think that the being able to untap this card is a really big deal. So maybe Wolves and Werewolves are where it really wants to be. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.